Welcome to our discussions for the upcoming EUDAMED regulations and the impact on the medical device manufacturers. Today, we have Lionel Tussau with us to share insights on how companies can be compliant. So, thanks for joining us. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dunja. So, Lionel Tussau, I'm lead healthcare at BYRD Health. And in addition, I'm also representing the company in a number of international organizations like MedTech Europe, where I'm a chair of the IT expert group for EUDAMED. And as such, I also work with the core UDI team of MedTech Europe and the regulators like the European Commission. And I'm also a member of the leadership team of GS1 Global Healthcare, which is driving the strategy worldwide for GS1 in the healthcare sector.
Let's start with the basics. What is EUDAMED and why is it so crucial for medical device manufacturers?
So simply, EUDAMED is really a cornerstone of the European regulation for medical device and IVDs. And it's a combination of 6 interacting modules, therefore the complexity, where the various actors, like manufacturers, but not only, have to input information, and which is used to, for instance, the vigilance activities, market surveillance. So this is really a key part, because as a manufacturer, if you want to sell a product in Europe, very soon it will be only possible if you have registered your devices in EUDAMED.
And what are the main challenges manufacturers face when preparing their data for EUDAMED?
Many challenges, but the biggest one for the moment is really time pressure. So the deadlines are really arriving now very quickly. They have less than 1 month to be ready. And there is the complexity of EUDAMED itself. The data model is twice as complex just in attributes as what they did in the US. And there is a lot of rules and documentation that you need to understand. Not everything is documented. So the problem is that you cannot just work by yourself and assume you will be compliant with EUDAMED, and you have to be compliant by law. But you need some support. And with the time going on, it will be more and more difficult to get support. We know for instance, the help desk of EUDAMED will have to face a very steep increase in questions from manufacturers. We have this experience in the US with a good ID when we get closer to the deadline. So it's really there is really not much time left.
So there are some requirements they need to meet. So how can manufacturers ensure that their product data meets EUDAMED requirements?
I think the real solution for that is really collaboration. You cannot work alone. It's just too complex. So you need to work with, for instance, the trade associations, indeed, with your issuing entity, like GS1, if this is your issuing entity. And you really have to network with your peers and get the support of trusted experts.
So beyond regulatory compliance, ESG factors are becoming more important. How does that tie into the EUDAMED compliance?
Today, not directly. So there is nothing in EUDAMED today which is connected to ESG topics and to attributes that would be really connected. But it's more, you have to look at it from another angle. EUDAMED is also a question of sharing product information to this database. And it should be part of your overall strategy of what you want to do with your product information that you have to share. Also with trading partners. And in this product information, you also have ESG information that you need to share. So you have this overall holistic strategy you must have, EUDAMED being part of it, and a key part because it's a regulatory compliance and because you cannot sell your products on the market otherwise. But in addition, you could expect that in the future, most probably the data model of EUDAMED will be further expanded and may very well introduce some ESG attributes. So at some point of time, there will be a more direct link between EUDAMED compliance and ESG compliance.
How does osapiens Hub for Medical Devices support manufacturers in meeting these requirements?
I would say at 3 levels. So BYRD Health is first a technology, you would say. So it's a platform which integrates and enables manufacturers to register data into EUDAMED, to be compliant with EUDAMED with a number of added values. Because EUDAMED itself is what is called an MVP, which means a minimum viable product. It means it doesn't have many fancy functionalities for the user. Or validation rules which are not implemented and so on. So you can get that from the platform itself of BYRD Health. But BYRD Health is much more than just a platform. Otherwise, it wouldn't really help. It's also a team of experts, of worldwide recognized experts. And this is very important due to the complexity of EUDAMED. If you want to implement and be sure you will be compliant, you need this trusted support. And I would say that the third level where BYRD Health is helping is the community aspect. So we're working a lot with a large number of manufacturers, with those international and national trade associations, with GES1, and also directly with the regulators, like the European Commission itself and regulators in other countries. So by working with us, you also benefit from this community and peer access, I would say. And if you combine the 3, then it enables you to have a smooth implementation of EUDAMED, I would even say MDR in general, and to be then and stay after that compliant.
So community is key. When will EUDAMED become mandatory, and what should companies now be doing?
So compliance is really soon, it's less than 1 year. So the UDI module itself, where you register your devices, will be mandatory. Normally we expect January next year. And then the final deadline for having registered all your devices on the market being July next year. So there is really not that much time left. And what the companies have to do really is, I would say, starting testing and starting registering devices. This is not an advice coming just from me, Lionel Tussau. So people heard it from the European Commission for some time now. They heard it from trade associations like MedTech Europe. And very recently, even notified bodies started to say, yeah, we want to register certificates in EUDAMED, Q2, for instance. Well, Q2 is next week. And then, obviously, manufacturers, to enable that, must already register their devices. So there is a very strong pressure. Time being of the essence, it's really now already time to test and register the devices.
So there's a sense of urgency. So that is a lot of valuable information. So do you have any advice for the medical device manufacturers?
Yeah, I would say don't work in isolation and don't underestimate the complexity of it. We have worked with so many manufacturers nowadays, and that's something which comes always. They don't realize how long and painful it may be for them, that their data may not be as available as they think they are, in the good level of quality as they would expect they are. And they only realize that when they do the actual testing in the system. So the key advice would be work with the communities, with trusted experts, solutions like BYRD Health, and then start doing the real job and enter data into EUDAMED.
Can you walk us through the major milestones companies need to be aware of?
Yes, sure. So first, the recommendation is really to have a completed registration, if possible, by July this year already. Because we expect that January is the first mandatory deadline for using the UDI module for all new devices. After that, July will be the final deadline for having registered all the devices on the market. In parallel, we expect for the moment that July will also be, July next year will also be the deadline for the vigilance or post-market surveillance, the same module, which means that from a manufacturer perspective, next year is really the year when everything becomes the normal life. In addition, there will be the clinical investigation module also for the manufacturers, but this will come at a later date, and we still need to get confirmation from the European Commission when it will.
When should companies be ready, and what risks do they face if they delay preparation?
Well, the risk is that you cannot sell devices on the market which are not in EUDAMED. It's a pretty big risk in itself. The problem is that the more the closer you get to the deadline, the more difficult it is to get support, especially from the help desk of the European Commission, but not only, because internally you also need to secure budgets, you need to secure the internal resources, so the teams working on it. So therefore, if you have not started yet, you should really start today, but really as quickly as possible.
Thank you for the very, very interesting conversation. I think if you want to hear more about EUDAMED and what osapiens can do for you, please contact us and we will be here.